This is really a nice turnout. We've got a great panel. I'll introduce them in just a couple of minutes. The first thing I'm going to do smartly is thank our sponsor, and that is Wilson Bank and Trust. And I'm going to ask Doug Gold to come up for just a second. Doug runs Nashville. He's got a big expense account, so if any of you need to put your food on him, feel free to do that. Doug, come on up.
I don't know about that big expense account, but we are really glad to be here tonight. And I wanted to welcome everybody on behalf of Wilson Bank and Trust, and want to thank George specifically for having us or giving us the opportunity to be a part of his speaker series. And so we're excited about the College Football Legends Night. If you don't know about Wilson Bank and Trust, we just opened our 30th office. I do kind of lead our Nashville efforts, but we're Middle Tennessee's community bank. And so we're still a local community bank. We make local decisions. So I just hope if you're around, you give us an opportunity or come check us out sometime. So welcome, and we're looking forward to tonight. Thanks, George.
The reason we're starting late is because Mark Barrett couldn't get here on time. Oh, no, I don't want to hear any excuses. You went to BGA. You should be here on time. Now, let me do a couple of thank yous real quickly. The first table in the back, Chris Casasanta and his beautiful wife, Tricia, raise your hands. Stand up. They were the transportation tonight. They were the transportation tonight to get Coach Cutcliffe and Tony Barnhart here. Let's see who else I need to thank. I see Jonas Rodriguez, head football coach at BGA. He's got a group back there. Jonas, thank you for being here. Want to thank the Overton football crew led by Coach Arcente Broom. Somebody back there stand up. And last but not least, my buddy Dale Roble has brought a group from James Lawson High School, which is the old Hillwood High School, but will become James Lawson and play their first year under that name in August. Dale, if you will, stand up. Dale is my buddy and is the guy that has kept Last Minute Toy Store alive, one of the great charities in our community. And I do a Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night for that cause because I think it is a terrific cause. So we've got that done. Let's introduce the panel. I need everybody to be quiet because we got to do this by way of Zoom. Coach Phillip Fulmer is in Knoxville, and he is on by Zoom. Coach Fulmer, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
You may now applaud. Coach Fulmer's been a good friend to a Vandy guy for a long time, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Now, I'm going to start with Coach Cutcliffe. Really good man, partly because he's a huge Atlanta Braves fan. Yeah. First place Atlanta Braves. But consistently, he is one of the best interviews I have when in my sports talk world. He's always one of the best. And he is about to deliver one of the great lines that you will hear tonight. Coach Cutcliffe, come on up here. Okay, now, Coach Cutcliffe, it shocked me last year at SEC Media Days in Atlanta. I was like, how much weight have you lost? And he delivered one of the all-time great lines. Get close because I want him to hear this.
Well, the great cardiologist I had, he said, I can't do anything about your DNA or genetics. They're bad. He said, so I'm telling you right now, if it tastes good, spit it out. I hate to deliver the bad news, but that's what it is.
Okay, so that's part of our panel. Next up, I want all of you to welcome Tony Barnhart to our stage. Tony, in my opinion, you're going to owe me some money for this. I believe Tony is the foremost authority on Southern college football, period. And when he said yes, I was thrilled. Now, tell him about your book right off the bat.
Of course, when he asked me, I said, do I get to plug my book? Oh, yeah, absolutely. The book is called it's the 19 of Green. And the 19, I played on the first ever integrated football team at my high school in the fall of 1970. There were 19 guys on the team. 15 of us are still alive. I went back and interviewed all of them and all of our teachers and coaches and put the book out. It'll be out in October. And thank you for asking.
Okay, everybody get your money ready. Get your money ready and buy the book. But it'll come out right about the time the Braves win the World Series. David, that's perfect timing. Yes. And last, but certainly not least, is one of my best buddies. He has been an absolute big brother to me for God only knows how long. He's also been a co-host of the show that we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. Every human being needs a Watson Brown friend. Coach Watson Brown.
Can we sit now, George? I feel like I'm asking the Lord what to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is permitted.
Yes. Sit, stand.
You may be seated.
Okay, thank you.
Bless your heart.
I was going to ask you, Phillip, in a minute if I didn't answer.
Hey,
That's a pretty distinguished group right there. I can tell you that.
Okay, so we know that he can hear us from up in Knoxville. So let's start out with national title kind of stuff. Coach Fulmer, you and David Cutcliffe won a national title 25 years ago, and there are a lot of people in this room who have great memories of that. I'm going to couch it a little bit differently. Georgia is trying to do a three-peat. I want all of y'all to talk about how difficult that is to try to pull off. Coach Fulmer, if you will, kind of get us started.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. I'll talk about us first before we talk about Georgia. How's that?
Fair enough.
It was a tremendous effort by a great group of young men that were realizing a lot of success anyway. Our team was at that particular time, but that year was special because we were able to get it all done. Had a lot of people there that made a big difference. Peyton's presence the year before and obviously was huge, and a lot of those good players that played on the 90s team but didn't get to experience the national championship were all part of that because of the foundation that they helped lay. And David and Randy Sanders, and I'll miss somebody, but Dan Brooks and John Chavis, all those guys were so important to us having such a foundation to make a run at a national championship. And then a lot of things had to fall in place, and it did. And I'm going to be so excited. And David, I hope you're planning to come back for the South Carolina game, because that's going to be our 25th anniversary of our 98 team. So I'm looking forward to that. And it was an unbelievable time. A lot of donors, a lot of people that made it happen, but it was certainly a team effort. As far as Georgia, it's phenomenal what they're doing now. They're building in on recruiting, and having the best players. And that's usually kind of a good place to start trying to build a championship.
David, you want to go next?
Yeah, I can, I'll speak to Phillip to what I saw you do and we were a part of it. When I was asked to describe Phillip Fulmer as a coach and what made the difference, it was persistence, the persistence of an offensive line coach, the detail. I think a lot of great offensive line coaches have become great head football coaches. And he wasn't going to stop till we won the whole thing. And it's a great memory, and you did surround yourself with a lot of good people. But to get to Georgia, I've had the good pleasure of going to watch them practice. I go visit with Kirby. I've known Kirby well. I coached against him as a player. When you're on the practice field, and folks, that's where you win championships. The seeds of victory don't grow on game fields. They grow on practice fields. And their persistence, Phillip, I will tell you this, Kirby's, the attention to detail, yes, they've got good players, but that's never enough. I wouldn't argue that they won't do it. I see a Georgia Bulldog out here, but it still takes some good fortune. Everybody realizes that, but the program is in a great place from what they get done on that practice field along with the recruiting. You'd love to watch them practice, Phillip, but I don't think you're going to get invited.
If I knew somebody at the Southeastern Conference, you think they might invite me, David?
What?
If I knew somebody that could take me from the conference office, would you think they might let me come in?
If they'd let you come if you work in the conference office, but
No, I'm talking about you taking me.
my job, I couldn't quite hear what you're saying. It's hard. It's an echo.
Yeah.
I think he wants an invite. I think he thinks you can pull it off, that you've
But I
got
could get him down there.
Oh, yeah. I think he thinks you've got the pull.
I don't know. I will look around to see if there's a gunman in the tower before you and I go out there. You beat Georgia way too many times, I believe.
So, Watson, what are the problems that trying to three-peat bring that otherwise would never be there?
George, I'd say it's double winning the first one. Then it's triple after you win the second one. It's just hard. I don't think people understand how hard it is to win a national championship. I mean, we talk that all the time, but so many things have to go well for you. And you have to have players first. Then they have to be trained and disciplined to carry it out. Not one game, not two games, but all year, because you can't lose one anymore and win a national championship. Maybe one, but you've got to do things right. And you're going to have to beat some good people. There's probably 10 schools a year that start out that might be good enough to win a national championship. Right. And you guys can probably say that or not. I don't know. And at the end, George, there might be 3 or 4 that could win the national championship. So I think a big piece of it is playing up to your ability all the way through, but then the luck comes into play. And that one bounce that you might need to win that one game to get you over the hump. And injury is such a big piece. What I think Georgia's done such a great job of, Tony, is they're so deep.
So
They
they're
have
absolutely
recruited
so
depth,
deep.
and I think that's made a big difference.
There's no question, Coach. Logically, Georgia should not be able to win a third straight national championship because, just to be able to focus. There's a reason it hasn't been done since 1936 when Minnesota did it. And I think one of their national championships was some obscure hole that you really don't count. So it's never been done in the modern era. But here's the thing with Georgia. Georgia has the talent. It starts there. And what people don't realize is when you've recruited at that level and then you lose a lot of guys, there are guys waiting in the wings who have been biting at the bit to get their chance, and now they do. And that is what it takes. The other thing is that look at Georgia's schedule. I'm sitting there looking at the other day. I said, tell me who's going to beat them. Going to Tennessee on November 18th. That's a game that everybody's going to circle on their calendar. But overall, the Georgia schedule is not very strong. So I think they've got a legitimate chance to do it if they get the quarterback play they want. Looks like Carson Beck's going to be the guy. I could be wrong about that. And they've got a bunch of 5-stars waiting in the wings. I think Georgia's got a really good chance to do it. The only thing I wanted to add was something that Coach Fulmer said about the 98 team. I really enjoyed covering that team, and I will never forget being out in Arizona during practice and talking to Al Wilson, one of my top 5 players ever. And I said, and Al and I had a moment together. I said, what do you think, Al? He said, we got this. I guarantee it. We got this.
I wish you'd have told me.
Al Wilson is one of the best football players I've ever been around, not only as a player, but as a person.
David, you and Coach Fulmer take that a little farther because he was a beast.
Al Wilson and T. Martin were 2 of the best crossover leaders I've ever been around. They had a deep love for each other on different sides of the ball. So it didn't matter what class you were in, what the color of your skin was, what side of the ball you played on. If you were a place kicker, those 2 cared about you, loved you, and they competed against each other. I mean, Al was as vicious at practice as he was in a game. And I will say this, watching what you said about how hard Tom Osborne had a great program at Nebraska. I don't even know if people realize how great the program was. 19 years before he won the first national championship. That tells you how hard it is to win one.
Coach Fulmer, if you can hear me, give me some thoughts on Al Wilson.
Oh my, Tony summed it up pretty good. I mean, he's as good a football player as I've ever been around at any level, at any position. He brought it every day. He expected everybody on the practice field to bring it every day. I had to really work at keeping him and Jamal Lewis and Travis Henry and Stevens and those guys and some of those offensive and defensive linemen. I mean, I'd give them 3 or 4 reps max in a 10-minute period and work the young guys because they were so physical, and we didn't want them, to get hurt in practice. But Al, his greatest strength was his leadership. It was never too hard, and it was never too tough. And if you weren't going 100%, he was going to call you out in front of everybody. So he was a tremendous enforcer. To Tony's point about how hard it is, and David's point about how hard it is, that national championship team was probably, it wasn't our best team. Certainly, you could look at 90, 95 or 97 and 01. All those teams were probably better, but they got it done in the tough games that we had to win. The Florida game, the Arkansas game, that was unbelievable. And to David Cutcliffe's credit and that group of coaches' credit, we got better as the season went on. We had a lot of issues, especially offensively, to get fixed. And by mid-season, T. Martin was playing like he's like a pro and had the great game against Georgia down there, and then finished the season up just undefeated. It's hard to do a number of times, so you have to take your hat off whether you like to or not to Georgia. But that was a fun time for sure.
We're going to do a little bit of what we would normally do on our show. We'll take some 2 and 3 minute commercial breaks, one of which is going to happen right now. And we're going to run this show later sometime after SEC football media days are over. 2 members of the George Plaster staff are here that I didn't introduce. Kelly Holcomb is in the back. Kelly, if you will, stand up. Don't give him too much applause. He says my golf game sucks. And sadly, he's right. Some of you who go back a few years, like I do, which means we're getting old, will remember at Father Ryan, their head coach was Bill Derrick. His grandson, Billy Derrick, is up here in the corner, and he's the guy running all of this. And no matter what, his job is secure at least until 7:30 because I have no idea how to run any of this stuff. We'll go to the break, and when we come back, a little bit of a state of the union of where college football is. We know we love the game. All of you are here because you love it, but there are obviously issues. We'll talk about them next.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Scholar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from, and for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
You can't see the sights without the sounds. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the crowd and everything in between, discover what Hit City has to offer. Spend your nights cheering on the Nashville Sounds at First Horizon Park with giveaways, fireworks shows, theme weekends, and more. Single game tickets are on sale now. Visit NashvilleSounds.com to claim your seat today.
So who said I can't be a golfer? Well, you know what? This is X Golf, located just down the road from the Fordyce Center in Bellevue. This is fun. It'll improve your golf game, and you need to stop in and check it out. 8138 Sawyer Brown Road, and who knows, I may get to 200 before it's all over. Okay, we welcome all of you back in front of a packed house here at Fordyce Center in Bellevue. Got a great panel. We've called them college football legends. They are former University of Tennessee football coach Phillip Fulmer, former Ole Miss and Duke football coach David Cutcliffe, former Vanderbilt and UAB football coach Watson Brown, and the man who knows more about Southern college football than anybody, Tony Barnhart. Okay. Let's sort of get into the whole, we love college football. I'm not sure any of us right now are thrilled with exactly how the sausage is made, whether it's NIL or transfer portal. But we all, I think, believe that especially on the D1 level, players ought to get something. So let's sort of break this down. Tony, I'm going to start with you. We've just named you, and congratulations on this. You are now the czar of college football.
Oh.
You could be replaced within 3 minutes by Watson Brown. Depends on how good your answers are. What would you do about those two issues?
Well, number one, let's go to the transfer portal, because the transfer portal is not going away. It's going to be there. Now, what they've done recently was a good move. They've cut the number of days that the portal is open from like 90 to 60. No, actually, he's 30. He's 30, and that was a good thing, because I talked to coaches when the transfer portal was first open. It was open 365 days a year. What a nightmare! I talked to some coaches who had to leave recruiting one kid, fly back to campus and talk a kid off the roof because he was going to leave. And that the windows of the transfer portal being narrowed, that's good. You get a 15-day window in the spring, 15-day window in December. And that's the way it should go. But we've learned from the courts. We've learned a lot of lessons from the courts about what is and what isn't going to happen. The transfer portal, unfortunately, is here to stay. As far as NIL goes, no, if anybody tells you they understand NIL and the way it's supposed to work, they are lying to you, because nobody understands what it's supposed to do. And when in the absence of any kind of defined rules, Coach Cutcliffe will tell you this, Coach Brown will tell you this, chaos ensues. And that's where we are now.
You did a good job as czar, Watson.
We could talk about this the rest of the show. I mean, let's start with the transfer portal. It's got to slow it down. We can't have this multiple going where you want all the time. It's got to get cut down. I like the thought of cutting the time down. I like the thought of at a certain point you can't transfer anywhere else the rest of that year till basically the year's over, and then you start. I don't like it when these kids are leaving in camp to go somewhere else. They're starting to get some of that under control, George, to me. The graduate thing's got to be addressed. This multiple go where you want once you graduate from college. Look at the kid that went to Daniels that left Southern Cal, went to Georgia, then went to West Virginia. Now he's at Rice, one of my old schools. That's 4 places since he graduated. They've got to get that under control next. I've always said when coaches leave, the players ought to have an opportunity to leave too. I just think most players come to schools because of the coach and the coaching staff. That's a big part of it. Not all of it, but a big part of it, George. And so I think that ought to be open. But also, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, and David may cringe, Phillip may cringe, Tony might agree with me. I've always said this should be like the NFL. If a coach signs a 5-year contract, he should have to stay 5 years and he can't go to another college job. That I've never understood, and Lord knows I jumped everywhere. So I'm one of the culprits here. But I just feel like if the coach stayed through his time, then the players then would stay more and we'd get a little stability. Last thing I'll say, and take it to David, I think it's much harder to keep a program steady with all this transfer portal. Your team's different. I've talked to one coach that's got 48 new players walking in the door in August. That's half your football team. So this, like we used to do it, David and Phillip, bring in a freshman, build them up. When they're juniors and seniors, you got a really good football team. That's when you got a shot. Those days are gone. But on the other side of that, George, I think it's easier to build a program quicker because now you get an opportunity as a coach. You're sitting here at a school and you don't have but so many scholarships, and you can't replace. You bring in a freshman to replace a really good player. Now you can go get that guy. So I think you can build a program a whole lot quicker than you used to. In some ways it hurts a coach, but in a lot of ways I think it helps a coach.
David, see if you like this one. Now, it's not as good a line as your cardiologist thing, which got a big laugh earlier. On the air one day, I announced that the Rose Bowl was going to have the Rose Bowl parade was going to have a transfer portal float. And the grand marshal of the float would be JT Daniels. Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Laugh.
Wow, nothing. So the cardiologist thing went great, and mine absolutely bombed. Wow.
Well, you're not in a Rose Bowl parade crowd here.
Right.
You know, let's face it. That's in California, George, just so you know.
At least explains why it bombed.
I got it. Okay. Phillip, you want to go ahead and jump in there? being the senior of this group in coaching. Go ahead and I'll follow.
Yeah. I'm a little bit, honestly, just mixed about it. I wish every kid could have the experience in college that I had. Was fortunate to have. You guys were fortunate to have. You know, you want them to grow up in due time, not having to play right away or you know, to graduate and do all the right things and have those experiences. But as Tony said, that's not going to happen anymore. And so if the coach doesn't take advantage of the opportunity that he has and go get the best players, and I would love for him to have the experience and the growth and all those kind of things. But if I'm the coach, I'm going to go get me these three guys can't play, and these three guys that are over here can play a lot better, and it gives me a better chance to win. I mean, it's almost like you got to take advantage of that. And the NIL stuff that's a whole another thing that they've got to get managed, because it's going to be 40 schools and everybody else or something like that. But the transfer portal stuff is a disadvantage for the universities, because they're losing kids in right and left that ordinarily would stay there for a duration of time. And, you know, I hate to see that as well. But if I'm a coach, I'm going to go recruit the best players I can find if that's the rule. And everybody I'm playing is doing the same thing.
David,
Well,
you ready to be a czar?
No, I don't want to be a czar with it, but I want to say this. The path we need to take needs to be all about what's best for our players, our athletes. That doesn't mean give them something. College football for years and years and years, what our goal has been is not to raise spoiled children. We're trying to raise great adults that'll make a difference in their communities. They're not all going to play pro football. Often when we start talking name, image, and likeness, and I don't like the NIL thing, people forget name, image, and likeness. What that means, George, any of us, if somebody's making money off of our name, our image, and our likeness, we're due a payment for that. That makes sense, right? But I was a part of the meeting with the football oversight when all this was way back being talked about, and I'm listening. They said they wanted to make the player an independent agent, and they could get agents. That way it wouldn't cost our institutions any money. And I stopped and said, excuse me, have any of you ever recruited? And the answer was no. And I said, this will be a recruiting nightmare. So before we can manage anything with the portal properly, what's best for the young person? Well, what's wrong with the portal is this: the usage of name, image, and likeness out of high school is how people are recruiting. I have assistant coaches everywhere tell me, the coach, they don't ask about anything. First thing the parents want to know, what's the NIL deal? And then once they go somewhere else and a coach says, well, I don't like these 5 players I got, I'm not worrying about developing them. I see 5 over here, I'm going to go and offer this. I actually had a head coach not in our part of the country call me, and he said, Coach, I just got a call from an agent. And he said, to keep my starting quarterback, it's going to cost me this much money. What should I do? And I wanted to tell him what I would have done, but I didn't do that. But I did say this. I said, the first thing I would do, that kid wouldn't play for me, just so you know. But I would call that youngster and his parents and say, come to my office. If you have a problem with our program or something you're looking at, talk to me face to face. I'm not going to deal with a third party. what football teams, and it's kind of what Watson, Tony, and Phillip just said. We've quit building programs. We're just trying to have a good team this year.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts about 80 people in your locker room that choose a school for the right reasons, or a staff, or buddies, or they've always wanted to go someplace. And man, that's your alma mater. And you graduate from there and you become a tougher individual and you're going to be an outstanding citizen. I'm sorry, but I don't want to see that get lost. And that's why I took the job I took. And they get tired of me talking about it around there. But guess what? Your butt better get tired, because I'm going to keep talking, because that's where we are.
Watson, how come he gets all the applause? His joke went over
Deserves
great.
it. He deserves it. He makes sense.
David,
I'd add to David. I
Hey,
think-
Watson, let me throw one thing in there that David mentioned too. The guys that are getting really screwed in this are the high schools and high school coaches, because when coaches are taking players that are more developed, they've been in a program a couple of years or whatever, that's one less opportunity that these high school guys are going to have along the way, and that's really been sad to watch too. The guys that get left out that wanted to come maybe to any school that they might want to come to, they have an opportunity, and then all of a sudden transfer guy shows up and you're not important anymore. So I wanted to share that too.
That was one of the things I was going to say, is it's hurting high school kids, in my opinion. Maybe not the top dollar one, but a lot of these kids aren't being recruited because they're saving the scholarships guys for the transfer guys. And there's less and less high school kids being taken. And I think that's a disaster. Second thing that I think is a disaster is these kids are transferring now, the bulk of them, not everybody. You used to transfer because you want to play more. The offense might fit me better if I go somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. Now it's how much money that I can get. The first thing they're thinking is, well, I can make more money here if I transfer out. And that is not good for college athletics. Somehow we've got to get that under control. And we've always fought people trying to get ahead of everybody by breaking a rule here or there. That's all part of the game. We all understand that. But now with these coaches getting it out there, hey man, we got 1.5 million if you'll come here. I mean, it's getting on the street through these agents, and it's just becoming a bidding war. And I never ever thought we'd get to that point. I just didn't.
Tony, you look like you got something there.
Well, absolutely right. But the thing is, we have had a lack of leadership at the top of the NCAA for some time now. Okay. And there's no debate of that. That is true. And we let the horse out of the barn. We didn't put any guide rails on NIL when it was first started. And then absent guardrails, absent guidelines, absent rules, like as I said earlier, chaos ensues. The issue now, well, I think it's a problem, is nobody has shown me a system yet. But these guys, as Coach Cutcliffe said, they should get compensated if people are using their name, image, and likeness. The problem is we've got a situation where no one showed me a program yet that doesn't violate antitrust law, okay? Somebody said, well, why don't we just give everybody $100,000 and be done with it? You can't do that. And the reason you can't do it, because as soon as you do that, the quarterback at the University of anywhere, blue blood program is worth a lot more than $100,000. And if you create a system that keeps me from making my market value because you want to have control over this, that is the classic definition of antitrust. We've let it get too far down the road. None of us wants, well, I don't want Congress involved in college football, period, because they haven't given us a very good track record. But the problem is, unless you don't have government intervention, I don't know how you turn this around legally.
If David had said that, it would have gotten a standing ovation. Okay, y'all want to tackle Texas and OU? So
Fun.
all of y'all know, anybody in here got any affiliation with either Texas or Oklahoma? Which one? Oklahoma. Okay, excellent. So there's sort of in the background of them coming in, sort of this belief that Texas and OU've got a bunch of J.R. Ewing wannabes, as team owners, and they're slinging money around, and they're going to come in and they're going to muscle their way through the conference until Nick Saban says, "Not so fast, my friend." So Tony, how's it really going to play out with Texas and OU? Good, bad, nice, what?
No, listen, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun having those two teams in the league. I have a group of friends. We travel all over the place to the Georgia-Florida game every year. The two bucket list games that they both had was Georgia at Ole Miss and Georgia at Texas. Well, guess what? Both of those are going to be played next year. I just think the fans I talk to are particularly the Georgia fans, are so excited about going to Austin next year because they've never been to Austin. They don't know what a neat place it is. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, from a competitive standpoint, I think where Texas and OU are about middle of the road. I don't think they're at the top of this league. I can be proven wrong, but I don't think they're at the top of I don't compare Texas and OU to Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. I think they're a notch below that, but we'll see.
Watson, you want to go?
Yeah, of course. I coached 2 years at Oklahoma, and my brother was at Texas for those years. And I'm telling you, those programs have got SEC written all over them. They're top line, first class places. Their fan bases are unbelievable. Everything that the SEC has, Texas and Oklahoma are going to bring it. I think they'll compete well, but the more, and David and Phillip are going to say the same thing, the more really good teams you bring in, the more average it gets on everybody. That win-loss record, we keep doing this in the SEC, and that old win-loss record, and they're going to go to 9 games. They didn't this year, but they're going. They're going to go to 9 games, and those records start dropping to 7-4, 6-5, and all of that. It's going to start making a difference on everybody, and that could very well also happen to Oklahoma and Texas the same way. I just want to watch the fan bases. The stronger the SEC gets, the more teams we bring in, and the more games every week that you're going to have a tough time winning, David. I think it's going to make the fans have fun, but they're not going to leave there happy because they're going to lose more games as it goes on. I remember coaching at Oklahoma. We're starting the season at TCU, and I'm nervous and scared to death. And Barry Switzer's son was on the team as a quarterback, and he's sitting under that big tree on the practice field at Oklahoma, and I'm walking off on Thursday scared to death, nervous. And Barry says to me, "Watson, what in the world are you uptight about? There's not but 4 teams that can play with you all year long." And he named those 4, and he ended up right that year. We beat TCU like 38-6 or something. Well, you jump into the SEC now, there's going to be more than 4 games that you got to compete in. So I think it's going to have effect on everybody. I don't think it's just going to be OU and Texas. I think everybody's going to struggle. OU and Texas are going to get better. I think one of the reasons Texas left, never be able to prove it. They all say money, 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 and there's a lot of money. I get it. But I think A&M's been beating them in recruiting in recent years because they're in the SEC.
No.
And I think Texas realizes that, and they got to jump back in where they balance up recruiting. And David, you may not agree with that, but I really think that's part of this because for the first time, when I was at Rice and Oklahoma and all that, Texas would beat A&M more than A&M would beat Texas in recruiting.
Guys,
when
word broke that Texas was and Oklahoma were coming, Texas A&M was livid. They were livid about it because, as one of them told me, he says, "Look, you just took away one of our prime recruiting advantages is that if you come to Texas A&M, you get a chance to play in the SEC." And they were absolutely livid when that story broke?
I think that was the biggest issue for Texas in the decision. I really do. I went to both places this spring. I watched Texas practice. I watched Oklahoma practice. I spent time with their equipment staff. They're all excited.
Hey, David, get a little bit closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I spent 2 days, I guess, each place watching practice, visiting with the staffs, just getting a jump start on them coming in the league. And they've got some good football players. And the Texas team's an interesting team right now. But Oklahoma has a good football team. First time I'd ever been to Norman, Oklahoma. After all of these years, I had never, and I felt Norman's a great place. And God, they love their Sooners now, I'm telling you. But I think you're right in this fact, Watson. Study those 2024 schedules that have been released and decide where you think you've got the best chance to win a national championship. It's hard to make that decision. We're going to look a lot like the NFL where nobody runs and dominates straight through. There are going to be some average seasons. Our fans in the Southeastern Conference at many of our institutions are not used to average seasons. Average being that middle of the road, 6'6", 7'5", who knows? But I think the football will be great. I think there's going to continue to be more change, George. I don't know what it's going to end up looking like. Phillip mentioned it. He said 40 schools. I don't know. I'm frightened by it. I am a huge fan of the fans of college football. And you all are the difference. Realize this, the NFL pays nothing for their, quote, minor league system, right? Nothing. And they couldn't have one because you all are the fans of the institutions. That's where it all happens. And I did tell everybody this, after going to SEC games for the first time in my life in a car, doing what y'all do. Oh my gosh, I'm bowing to all of you. Getting out after a game. Come on, man. I can't believe this.
We're on that buses with security.
Yeah, we're rolling in on a bus with policemen and lights and sirens and in and out. And I did at least get a parking spot, but at certain schools, because I guess who I was, it made me walk about 2 miles. I don't know.
David, let's not rip at all on those police. I paid in 1995 $20, bribed a policeman to get in Vanderbilt's motorcade, and I got to game 1 of the World Series, Braves Cleveland Indians, in the bottom of the 2nd inning. So I'm always thanking those people.
Woo, it's amazing what you all do and why it just means more. I finally, that's that's what we say, the motto. It just means more. I tell players and coaches, it's not you, it's the fans. So God bless you all and thank you very much. Just stay true to your school and we'll be just fine.
Coach Fulmer, you've been listening to all this. Chime in on Texas.
There's a lot of wisdom being shared there for sure. I think both Texas and Oklahoma are great schools, and so I do think there's an adjustment time. Not that you. It's kind of like what Watson said. Not that you're not one of the best teams in the league, but the schedule itself that you're playing, you don't really have too many softies in there at all. They're all tough, and they haven't really had to coach through that and have their kids go through a 4 or 5 stretch game with big time teams. So I think they'll have a little harder time personally, but somebody's going to get pushed down for sure because they're adding more people and who are the ones that can stay in there with Georgia and Alabama and Florida or Georgia, Alabama, and LSU, and hopefully Tennessee. now. So we'll see.
Okay, I couldn't tell. It looks like he's still talking, but maybe we're not hearing him. Okay, we're going to go to the break, and when we come back, we'll get into a little bit of hazing. That seems to be a topic all of a sudden. And then I'm going to want questions out of the audience. Butch Samide, Battleground Academy graduate, Florida State student, is going to solicit your questions. And I want this to be really good. I want a bunch of y'all to let him know that you've got a question. Come on up here and ask it. And we'll get this show on the road. We'll go to the break, Billy, and we'll be back with more from the Ford Center in Bellevue. Stick around.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
You know, starting to save for your future doesn't have to be difficult. Let Wilson Bank and Trust help tone up your financial goals this year. Our certificates of deposits or CDs can help your money work harder with our competitive rates, earning you more than ever before. WBT checking options allow you to earn rewards you can really use, like a high interest rate or cash back on check card purchases when you meet some e-banking qualifications. Visit your closest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC.
Family owned and operated for more than 2 decades, Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you are interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue in Berry Hill, or give them a call at 615-356-0303. Again, that's 615-356-0303, or log on to alacofinewoodfloors.com. Alaco Fine Wood Floors, serving Middle Tennessee's hardwood flooring needs since 1995.
At Baird, we have a different slant on global financial advice. That global capabilities mean nothing without personal attention. We have investor relationships in 35 countries and market expertise in over 40 industry verticals, all to help make the most important investment connections of all, yours. Global financial advice with a client-first approach. It's the shape of things to come. Discover the Baird difference at BairdDifference.com.
Okay, I'm told that we are back. So I need to get everybody, if you will, to kind of quiet down a little bit. I can tell this is maybe not working yet, but if you all will take your seats and we'll continue with our college football legends night. The panel includes former University of Tennessee coach Phillip Fulmer, former Ole Miss and Duke football coach David Cutcliffe, former Vanderbilt and UAB coach Watson Brown, and Tony Barnhart did not want to be a coach of anywhere, but instead has been one heck of a college football reporter over the years. Okay, last week, the hazing thing kind of pops up out of nowhere with a guy that nobody would have thought would be the guilty culprit. Pat Fitzgerald's had a squeaky clean image. So, Tony, let me start with you. Will this be a big topic this week at SEC Football Media Days?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so. I obviously, as all of us who love college football, you hate to see something like that happen. But the reality is, it did happen, or Pat Fitzgerald did get fired. The bizarre thing to me was the fact that they suspended him, and then the president had a change of heart. And what I've found over the years is sometimes college presidents wake up and go, you know, I might be vulnerable on this. I better make a decision. So I hate it because all of my dealings with Pat Fitzgerald over the years, I haven't had a lot, but I was very impressed with him. And it's one of those things that's sad. It's very sad for college football.
Tony, will he get to coach again, be a head coach on the college football level?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because the sensitivity on this particular subject is so great. And it's going to be, and I think he'd have to step down a level or something of that nature. But yeah, I think the odds are very much against him coaching at the highest level again.
Watson, give me some thoughts.
Well, to me, George, it was surprising to me because hazing has become a big thing. And we remember, what was it, David, 15, 20 years ago when the fraternity had the hazing incidents and a person died. And from that point on, really, it became part of our program. And I can remember every year when I was the AD at UAB and coach, and then later at the next school at Tennessee Tech, one of the first things we talked about when the players would come back from the summer is the athletic personnel would come in to talk to us. And hazing was one of the first things you talked about, that we just can't have that within our program and watch that. So it's out there. I know coaches have talked about it. I did. I was surprised what went down. And everybody says, well, what did Coach Fitzgerald know? And how much did he know? Honestly, guys, it doesn't matter. Once it reaches that point, he's in charge of the program, and it's going to get you. And especially with some of the ugly things that were written about it. Nobody wins in these deals, guys. Nobody wins. The football team doesn't win at all. There'll be players leaving. They're going to have all kind of disruptions through the year. They're already losing most of their commitments for the next year. It's going to be really hard on Northwestern. It's not the easiest place to win in anyway. Now you put this on top of it, and it really, really makes it hard. I feel for Coach, whether he knew it, he didn't. He's just nearly got to. And once it gets to this point, he's going to be gone. It's just all there is to it. And I understand that. I think we coaches understand when something like this goes down, it's tough, and you may have to move on for it.
David, you've coached, both you and Watson have coached at places very similar to Northwestern. Is their deal going to fall apart?
You know, first, we don't know what we don't know. Let's all understand that. We also don't know what we do know. We're reading comments. I know Pat very well. I coached against him. Worked with him on the American Football Coaches Association board. Pat's a good husband and a good dad. But Watson's right. We're charged to know everything that is happening in our program, period. I don't know what occurred. I know the guy lost his job. There is going to be a great rebound, losing a whole year maybe of recruiting, particularly this time of year. It's tough. But I would hope, and what I sent out to our coaches, what I did, I had a great checklist. Phillip Fulmer taught me this, but a checklist of everything that I needed to talk to our players about. I wasn't going to just bring in people to talk about how you deal with women and sexual assault. I was going to have my own conversations with them. And I've encouraged our coaches to cover every base. But the harder part are these programs are got 125 players or whatever your Title IX number. The number of employees is huge. It's having everybody on the same page. So you also have to go to your staff and make sure they understand to be upfront and honest. If they know anything like that, bring it to you, and you can try to manage it. It's horrible. But again, we don't know anything. So I just wouldn't be as judgmental on Pat as a lot of people are being. The president, any of them, anywhere, I know how that works. They can fire you at any time. Happened to me. But that's okay. We're big boys. We can handle that. Pat will handle it fine. I've texted with him, hadn't talked to him yet, but I'm not going to treat him like he has a plague. I'm going to sit down and talk with him and, see if I can help him in any way. But it's not a part of anything we should do this day and time. To belittle anybody, to haze anybody is wrong. End of story. Whatever way you do it.
Hopefully some of you can see as we go to Coach Fulmer, we've moved the TV where you can see him here in just a second. Coach, give us where you want to go on this.
No, I think everybody's talked about it, real frankly, and we did. We tried to know what was going on in their lives from the time that we started the recruiting process, and would he be somebody or she, if it's a female, that's not going to live up to the standards that we hope and expect. And even then, you still have issues, from time to time that you have to deal with the Title IX people with, and those aren't pleasant things at all. I mean, those are things that you don't want to really have to do, but it's so necessary. And Pat Fitzgerald's a great guy. I've known him a little bit, and we did play against him a couple of different times. And I'm sure, if he had whatever it was to do over again, he might do it differently. But maybe he was doing all that he thought he could, and he didn't know about it. So that's hard. But David and Watson and Tony are all correct, and it's something that I think we need to stay on top of all the time. It's not, you got 600 plus student athletes under your auspices, and you're not going to be with them every minute of every day, but you've got to know what's going on in their world.
Okay, let's go questions out of the audience. Beware, your driver has a question.
Okay, this is two questions. First question is, with the expansion of the playoffs coming, do you think there'll ever be a 13th game added? And my second question is I personally don't think it's a matter of if, but when, with how easy betting is, that's going to affect college football.
Great start.
Yeah.
Questions out of the audience.
Chris, you're a great driver too, by the way. Thank you. I'll tell you, the betting thing frightens the heck out of me, because that right there, and they can do it anytime, any place. It can be tracked. It's frightening to me. We've got to do a great job of educating our young people, their responsibilities. That's something that I'm writing a lot of things about right now myself. about our best approach in that regard. I don't see a 13th game with the playoffs expanding to 12, and whether that produces a more realistic national championship or not, injuries, etc. It is what it is, and it's going to happen. But we got to remember they're college students. Let's go back to what I said, what's best for the players. And we can't let that go as we move forward with this. And so that season's hard. And, there's no way that I think we could add another regular season game and expand the playoffs.
George, if I had to pick one thing that concerns me for young kids, young college athletes, it's betting. It's absolutely scares me to death. It did when I coached. And now with it more legal as it is, it really scares me to death. Look at the NFL guys right now that are getting in trouble. What we have, some suspended for 2 years just recently over betting. It is a big concern to me, and to be promoting betting like we are now all over the country, which that's fine with me. But these young kids are seeing this. They still are kids. They're still 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. And that one scares me to death. I really believe the playoffs is going to end up being a good thing. It's going to be very competitive. We're going to want to watch those games more than just a bowl game. I don't like seeing the bowl games getting hurt. That bothers me. Big time bothers me, because I grew up that college football bowl games is what it's all about. And I've been on many teams where that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to get to a bowl somewhere. That is a concern. I really believe the expansion is money, but I also think it's these big conferences growing and these teams coming in, and if they don't expand, that third and fourth team don't have a shot at getting in, or fifth team. And I think with these conferences growing, they want to be able to say, Oklahoma, you can come to the SEC. They're going to expand the playoffs. You're going to have every bit of opportunity to get in. You might lose 2 in this league and still get to go over somebody else. I think that's part of it. I think the SEC, and I can't prove that, but I think the SEC and the Big Ten pushed for expansion because they were expanding to so many teams in their league.
The first 7 years of the college football playoff, 4-team college football playoff, that's 28 slots, okay? First 7 years, 28 slots. Of those 28 slots, 22 went to 5 schools, okay? And it's the 5 that you would think. So the biggest thing about the playoff is giving more opportunity. One of the there are always unintended consequences in stuff like this. One of the unintended consequences of the 4-team playoff was that the recruiting advantage it would give to the Clemsons and the Alabamas of the world, because they can go out and recruit and say, young man, you want to play in the college football playoff, right? Then you need to come to my school. Don't go to that school. They've never been. We've been 3 times. The idea is to give them opportunities to play in the college football playoff. I don't like the idea of some guys playing 15, 16, 17 games. I'm not thrilled about that at all. But to me, it's about opportunity and giving more schools an opportunity to be a part of the playoff.
Coach Fulmer?
No, I think Tony's right. I think it is a great opportunity for more people to get the chance to play in the game, and it'll create more interest along the way. I really, back in the day, wasn't one that really wanted a more of a playoff, but I can sure see now where it would be beneficial.
Okay, let's take another question out of the audience. Fire away.
It's for Coach Cutcliffe. Discuss your time coaching both Eli and Peyton Manning. That's what I'd like to hear.
Well, I don't buy lottery tickets because I've already won the lottery by coaching both Peyton and Eli. 2 different types of people, very similar from a quarterback standpoint, their talent to hit an open receiver. It all starts with accuracy, the way they use their mind in such a quick manner, their vision. People don't talk enough about quarterbacks' vision, that they saw the field. Got a really good one right here is listening to me right now, Mr. George here. But and then it's really, you know what I would say the most similar trait they had was to focus on the task at hand. Their ability to make practice like a game, their ability, the consistency of their focused work. And it was interesting. So like they're both really gifted students. And I learned this early with Peyton when he was sitting with a tutor in the evening, and I'm going back from dinner, going back over to the office, and I would pass him and want to come up and say something about football. He would look at me like, I'm studying, okay? And I learned to appreciate that. It's focusing on the task at hand. Be where your feet are. And if that's one thing I would say. The other thing is they're both great teammates. It was important to them to be a great teammate. And if I had to give any young player advice going into a new setting and a new program, I hope a program, is to try to become the best teammate on that team. There's going to be people come up to Peyton and Eli and say, hey, man, you were the best teammate I ever had. You couldn't say anything better to them than that. That's what they did great.
What a great answer. Next question now to the audience.
Yep. I'd like to know what you think the future is of the 4 conferences, not the Big Ten and not the SEC, but their future over the next 4 or 5 years.
Let's start with Coach Fulmer on that one.
Would do that, George. You know, what my concern is, and I mentioned it earlier, that, and I think Tony brought it up, there's all kinds of issues out there getting ready to come to fruition with antitrust and all kinds of schedule issues and things like that. And the money is getting bigger and bigger. So what happens here? Do we end up with 40 teams, 60 teams, and we're playing an NFL type schedule, leading up to the national championship, and then everybody else is kind of left out. I don't know. I don't know if I heard the question right, exactly what's going to happen with the scheduling and stuff, but the 2 teams that are dominant right now are they're going to continue to get more dominant. It seems to me, and then everybody else is trying to keep up.
Tony,
2 leagues.
Does Memphis have a shot at any of this?
It's going to be, well, here's the thing about the college football playoff, the 12-team college football playoff. The top 6 conference winners, the 6 winners that are rated highest by the selection committee, all get a spot in the playoffs. So if Memphis wins their conference and they're one of the top 6, they're in. They're going to get now. But you're talking about.
I'm talking about.
You're talking about. Do they have a chance to make it?
They have
the
been
Big 12,
begging to get in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Do you?
I really don't, because understand the Big 12 is holding some slots back for their friends in the Pac-10, Pac-12. If the next key move in all of this is the Pac-12 television deal when it finally gets put together. If the numbers aren't right, the Big 12 has let certain members of the Pac-12 know there may be a home for them in the Big 12. So watch out for that Pac-12 television deal and what the numbers are. If not, there's going to be some teams in the Pac-12 looking to move.
George, I'm just so concerned because money has become the deal. And in Tony, in 2022, I saw this the other day. Ohio State led the country in revenues, athletic revenues in 2022, $251 million in revenues. The top 10, none of them were under 220 million. All of them were Big Ten or SEC, except two, Oklahoma and Texas.
There you go.
Were the other two. The money is getting so big, David, to me, I don't see how these group of fives have a shot. They just can't keep up. You can't keep recruiting a player up on the level, enough players. You'll get some, not enough players up to that level. I think it's, personally believe we're going to end up, it's not going to be tomorrow, but there may be two different levels. There may be a national championship on a group of five level, and they sure don't want to hear me say that, and a national championship on the Power Five level. But the way this money keeps being so different, top to bottom, and who's making it and who's not, who's bringing it in. And I'm going to say 2007 at UAB, the athletic budget was $17 million. $17 million. Ohio State just brings in $251 million in 2022. There's such a difference in what it used to be, and I think there's going to be a disparity, and it's going to keep growing even more as we go.
David?
It's all, it's hard to expand on what you all said. What money is the driver. I'll tell you what I think about that. My mother, we had some tragic events in our family. My mother was just an amazing lady, but she gave me 3 tidbits of advice. And one of the first one was, David, remember that money is the root of all evil. And I thought to myself, yeah, because we don't have any, right? You know, and that was real. But as I look at the decisions, everything everybody said was all based on the dollars and cents. And I go back to the opportunity young people have to play this great game. And I'm worried about that. And I would hope that we see a love for the game and competition and teammates. And but I don't know how long that's going to be around. And I don't want to see them become professional athletes at 18 years old. And what we're seeing, and I'm sorry, but I believe this, and our commissioner knows I believe this, when you give a 19-year-old a brand new car, a lot of money, and a lot of privilege, I don't know how many talks you would have to have, they're going to find a way to get in trouble. I'm just very thankful I didn't have any money or privilege at 19, and I damn sure didn't have a new car, so I had to take care of what I did. But that's the problem. It's hurting the young person. It's dangerous, the path we're on right now for all of us.
And on top of that, David, to me, George, and audience, these kids now are having to grow up quicker. They're getting money put in their pocket quick. I can remember having college kids that didn't have anything and then be a first-round draft choice, and then they had a trouble handling their money when they first came out. Now these high school kids are being paid big money, and they're having to grow up fast. They're having to learn how to pay taxes. They're having to learn where to put their money and what to do with it. And I'm not sure that isn't more issues mentally for them at a young age that they're having to deal with that you didn't have to deal with. When Phillip and I were coming through, we got $15 a month.
That's right, meal check.
And we couldn't wait to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a
laundry
big deal.
check's what I
But
meant to say.
these kids at a young age handling this money is tough on them, but it is making them grow up quicker, and that's not a bad thing. If they can handle it and just make sure the universities help them handle it, I think it's very important.
Well, how many of you have ever separated a mother and a 19-year-old son in a physical fight? Anybody besides me? Okay, this is when I was at Duke. We had a youngster that full cost of attendance, this is before name, image, and likeness. got $32,000 tax-free money above his scholarship because they didn't have anything. He went, in his mother's opinion, bought too many pairs of brand new tennis shoes, and she attacked him in our facility. I would recommend don't ever touch the mother in that fight. Go straight to the kid, okay? That's real.
Good point. Good point.
Well, you didn't expect to hear that one, did you? We'll go to a final break. We'll take 2 or 3 more questions out of the audience, and then we'll wrap things up. About a 2-minute break. Stay tuned. We're coming back.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Scholar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
You can't see the sights without the sounds. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the crowd and everything in between, discover what Hit City has to offer. Spend your nights cheering on the Nashville Sounds at First Horizon Park with giveaways, fireworks shows, theme weekends, and more. Single game tickets are on sale now. Visit NashvilleSounds.com to claim your seat today.
Hello, this is Celeste Middleton, a State Farm agent in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I want to help my neighbors and local businesses be proactive and assess their risk before something unexpected happens. We want you to have a thorough understanding of your coverages to have the best protection when you need it. We can create a personal price plan for you. Our team has over 70 years of experience helping people in Middle Tennessee. We have an awesome team with integrity and provide honest and prompt communication. And we love what we do and genuinely care about everyone we work with at our office. Give us a call at 615-895-2700. Send us a message at celestemiddleton.com or walk in at our office at 803 North Thompson Lane in Murfreesboro. We would love to earn your business.
You know, starting to save for your future doesn't have to be difficult. Let Wilson Bank and Trust help tone up your financial goals this year. Our certificates of deposits or CDs can help your money work harder with our competitive rates, earning you more than ever before. WBT checking options allow you to earn rewards you can really use, like a high interest rate or cash back on check card purchases when you meet some e-banking qualifications. Visit your closest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC.
Okay, we are back, and we welcome all of you into what is College Football Legends Night from the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue. Terrific panel. I can't thank them enough. Coach Phillip Fulmer, Tony Barnhart, Coach Watson Brown, Coach David Cutcliffe. A bunch of questions before we end this. Let's start, Bud, with you.
Yes, the subject came up on the expansion and all that. And I know there's a little turmoil right now in the ACC. I'm interested. Next week I'll be at the ACC meetings and curious to see what happens there. But what do you think of schools like Florida State and Clemson? Where do they stand? Are they targets for SEC or Big Ten?
Won't speak as an SEC employee. We haven't spoken about it at all in any manner as a staff. But what the root of the issue, let's go back to the money, was all about the profit sharing. There's a lot of turmoil amongst how the money should be dispersed, which would tell me that if you don't like the way it's going, you're looking. So just pay attention to what you read, who was making the comments. Oh, you know they're looking if they don't like the way the financial circumstance is. That's my thought.
Well, two thoughts there is you asked about Florida State and Clemson. From a monetary standpoint, and it always comes back to money, what the SEC would tell you, we've got those markets already in hand. We've got the University of Florida. We've got the Florida market. We've got the University of South Carolina. We've got the South Carolina market. And so I don't really see it happening. And the other point is the ACC's favorite word, grant of rights. Okay? They've got a contract now with ESPN that runs through 2036. They can't just, if the SEC invited them tomorrow, they couldn't go without paying about $100 million in exit fees.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think the money coming into the ACC is not going to change a lot because of this long-term contract. So the only thing the ACC can do, David, is find a way to disperse the money differently. And I think that's kind of what the talk is right now, because they can't pick up any more money. So if they want to keep Clemson, if they want to keep North Carolina, whoever, they're going to have to start paying certain schools more about how much they win or whatever. That's what I think will happen in the ACC, in my opinion.
Coach Fulmer?
Would be much more up on that than me right now, but it is an issue that's I mean, Tony may know a lot more about it than I do, but I think they're, as he said, they're looking if they are not getting results of the amount of money that they would like to get.
By the end of the week, the slogan, SEC has a slogan, it just means more. Might change to it just pays more. Jared, what do you got? I got a slight laugh. God, y'all are a tough crowd.
So with the expansion of the college football playoff, the championship games, particularly the SEC championship game, if I am Alabama, Tennessee, let's go Vols. Please, Lord, let's see Tennessee in the SEC championship game. But there's a scenario where playing in that game hurts me, particularly with depth, injuries, other issues. Why would I want to play in that game if I'm sitting pretty at the end of the season and I know I'm in the playoffs? It seems there's a scenario where maybe we have a bye for the best team in the SEC and we let people have a play-in game.
Well, the reality, you make an entirely logical, cogent argument. Won't matter. Okay. You're going to play in that game because it's been there since 1992. The finances are too great. There's too much tradition. And so they're not going to do, I've asked this a million times. They are not doing away with the SEC championship game. But the point you make is a good one, but that's not going to change.
I would add to it that I'm not sure as it expands to 12, if those are the two best, and there's not divisions playing each other. It's the two best teams in the SEC playing each other. Injury would be the biggest concern, but they're both still probably going to get in anyway. The winner and the loser of that game are still going to be in the playoffs. Where they're ranked might make them fall a little, but I think they'd both still be in.
David?
I think it means more to players and coaches to put on an SEC championship ring when it's all said and done. Because by gosh, that game and that atmosphere, woo, go play in that one. You want to go play in it. If you've got pride and you're the right kind of competitor, put that SEC championship ring on and feel really good about what you just accomplished.
Coach Fulmer?
David's exactly right. I mean, that's the epitome. I think we played in it 5 times, and it's the epitome of all the games that we've played in before. I do think, and I think Watson just said it, that not dropping in it like we have before with the playoff system is going to be a huge plus. You could be in that darn game and lose right at the end to LSU, who went on and played for the championship, and all of a sudden you're playing in a bowl game that's not at the level that you should be in. And I hope that, David, I'm sure that's part of the expansion, that you don't drop like that.
Let's go to Hicks. What's your question for these guys?
Every so often, it seems a little chatters out there about perhaps moving the SEC offices to another location. It just pops up every so often. And I was wondering if the panelists had any thoughts about that, and if there were to be maybe a place like Nashville to move it from Birmingham to someplace else.
David, that one's on
That
you.
guy,
I think,
that guy
bud.
works
Oh,
in the
yeah.
conference
I just bought a house in Hoover. What the heck are you talking about? That's been talked about. Atlanta, certainly, Nashville. I think everybody gets that. But, that building, if you've never been down there, that area is much improved. I don't really know what the contract is. Is it?
It's $1 a year.
I knew it was friendly. and so, you might have to talk to Greg Sankey about that one. That's above my pay scale.
Where in the world would they come up, Tony, with that $1? They're struggling so much financially.
Who knows? Who knows? I would say Roy Kramer, the great visionary, had a hand in that. Mm-hmm.
Rob, come on up here. Rob Fessmeyer played back in the 80s at Mississippi State University.
That's right. All right. So look, I had a rough week this last week. I had a teammate of mine who passed away. So we all went back for his memorial, and all the guys were saying, where's the reciprocity? We're wanting our money from back then. Is that fair?
I'm with you.
There you go. No, but seriously, we talked about the love of the game and how all this NIL has changed all these young guys' lives. And we would not change our lives for anything, because we had a athletic dorm. We had 3 squares a day. We became close because we were with somebody. We were a team. And my thought is, what do y'all think? Do you think the athletic dorm will ever come back? Because that was the greatest thing that put us together and made us hurt so much this last week for this young guy that passed away.
I love the Bulldogs. I spent 2 years there with you and with Coach Sherrill. I don't think you'll ever see the athletic dorms back. I think that's gone. These kids now are starting to make money, and all of them making different amounts of money, and they're living in different places, and some are living in the Taj Mahals, and some are still trying to make it living in a dorm room or something. When you talk that, I just got a warm feeling all through me, because that's what college athletics was then. It was amateur kids playing college sports, and that's what we've lost. And because of money, I don't think we'll ever see it again. I don't think the teams, you'll never get as close like you did with your teammates, because there's so much transition from year to year now. And you come in as a freshman with a group, and you're there with them for 5 years. And back when I'm old enough that I didn't get to play as a freshman, we had freshman teams. You couldn't play varsity football then. So all of that is just gone to me. And that's the thing I think that these kids are going to miss, is those friendships. My college teammates, my high school teammates are still my best friends in the world today. My high school coach was my second dad. And I'm afraid we're losing a lot of that, David.
We are.
Tony, We had to start 7 minutes late because this guy didn't get here on time. This is Mark Barrett. Should we allow him to ask a question?
Absolutely. But be on time next time, will you?
Well, I had to go pick up Wowo and Timmy, but let me say that Rob Fessmeyer did get paid to play at Mississippi State. So don't fall for that. He did get paid. Coach, as we all know, the greatest college football game in the history of college football occurred in 1969, Dudley Field, when Vanderbilt beat Alabama. We had Watson Brown and Doug Matthews. And Coach, would you tell us a little bit about that game? And then after you tell us about that game, what does Vanderbilt need to do other than maybe a Brentwood Academy quarterback? What do we need to do to be successful going forward?
Oh, well, that night is so different then. I mean, the competition level, Alabama was rolling there undefeated. We hadn't won yet. I mean, we hadn't won a game at that point. Army had beaten us the week before, and Johnny Musso, I think, didn't get to play that night. That helped a little bit. He was injured, but we just played our hearts out, and Alabama overlooked us, and we knocked them off. It was a great night, and I think we had like 500 yards of offense and 14 points. The game could have been a lot worse. We just didn't get it in a couple of times when we got close. And Vanderbilt, to me, I like Coach Lee. I think he's doing a really good job. I think he's doing everything he can. I think he understands Vanderbilt, how to recruit to it in the SEC. I really love the schedule that they've put together for him. It's a little bit of the chemistry of what Coach Snyder did at Kansas State. He went in, he knew he was in a tough league. He went in and set a schedule of 4 non-conference games that he could win. All of them were at home. He was 4-0. He had them early in the year. He was 4-0 before the season, the SEC even started. He was ranked a lot of times at that point. And I think that's a smart thing for Vanderbilt to do. You win those 4 games, you go 2-6 right now, you're in a bowl. You go 2-6 in the SEC and you've won those 4 games, you're in a bowl. Then it starts growing from there and you start getting better. Then all of a sudden you win 3. Then all of a sudden you win 4. There gets to be an image of we're winning. We're going to bowls every year. I think that's doable. I think they're being very smart with their scheduling, and it looks like he's doing a good job recruiting. I told David, I remember in my last year of recruiting, we were ranked 32nd in the country in recruiting. Every SEC school was ahead of us in the ranking. Every single SEC school. So you're in the toughest league in the country. And to find a way to win those games and get some confidence with your kids and have health, get you some good wins early, let them grow in confidence, and then let them go fight their hearts out and see if they can win some of those games, as Coach Lee did last year. He got real close in that philosophy. Yep. I think he won 3 non-conference games, right? Mm-hmm. And he lost 1 to Wake Forest, but he won 3. Mm-hmm. And so he was right there, 1 more win, and he'd have been in a bowl last year. So I think they're on the right track.
I'll be at the Hawaii game, their opening game.
Will you?
I've already put it on my calendar. He's doing a great job. I want to say this about that night, 1969. That defined this guy's coaching career. Let me tell you about Watson Brown, the coach. So I watched his career closely. I went and visited them at Rice. I don't know if he talked to me, but his assistant coaches did. I learned so much good offensive football in detail in coaching. And I'm going to give you the greatest compliment that I could give a coach right now. Bum Phillips gave it to Coach Bryant. And when I would say this at Duke, nobody had any idea what I was saying. Okay? But Watson Brown could take his'n and beat yourn, and take yourn and beat his'n. And that's real. Now, how many of you in here, raise your hand if you have no idea what I just said? You're not going to do it. But at Duke, I had his'n, yourn, his'n. What in the world did he say? I was speaking Chinese.
Speaking my language right there. That's where I grew up, at his'n and yourn.
You did it. I mean,
Got two more questions out of the audience. One of them is Billy Derrick. We're going to have to vote on whether we think he deserves to ask it.
Yes, I was wondering who was the greatest, and this goes for all four of you, the greatest player that you coached or covered, and then what opponent player-wise was the one that gave you the biggest headaches. And last one is minus the Fiesta Bowl, minus the SEC championships, what was the best game that you coached in?
Want me to go first?
Let's start in Knoxville on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, the best game outside of the championship, is that what I heard? Was probably the 2001 Florida game in Florida that we beat Florida to put us in the SEC championship game. And what was the first question? Who was the biggest pain in the rear? George?
I think he said who was the toughest player to play against?
Oh, to play against. My gosh, well, there's a bunch of them. Cornelius Bennett was a great player that we had to defend. One of my greatest moments was when I saw him walk out on an inside receiver and leave the line of scrimmage because we could run the ball a little bit when he adjusted. Now, there's so many great players that in this conference you'd have to almost do that by week.
Here comes from Tony Barnhart, a Herschel Walker moment, or as Frank Broyles said it, Herschel Walker.
Absolutely. No, Herschel Walker was the best football player I've ever seen. He was the best football player I'd ever seen when he was a freshman, but he did not win the Heisman Trophy. George
Rogers
from South Carolina won it. The next year, the Southern Cal running back ran for 2,000 yards. And then Herschel won it as a junior. The combination of speed and power. I'd never seen anything like it. And he was just absolutely remarkable. Best game I ever saw in person was Texas beating USC with Vince Young at the Rose Bowl. That was a game where I had already written my story about USC winning and the dynasty continues. The story was done. And then Pete Carroll decided to go for it on 4th and 2 and didn't make it. And the entire press box went, oh my goodness. So then you start writing again. My goodness.
My goodness was not the word, was it?
No, it wasn't even close.
No, I didn't think so.
We've got some young people in the audience. So, but that was, I will never forget that night because you had 2 Heisman Trophy winners on the field. Incredible amount of talent, great setting, incredible, just an incredible football game.
Watson?
Oh gosh, I think the best player I ever coached that did more with his ability than anybody I ever had was Whit Taylor, the quarterback at Vanderbilt. He was unbelievable. He got everything out of what he had. He was a winner. He was tougher than nails, George. He smart. It's just like David was saying about the 2 Mannings could see the field so well. That was Whit. He could see the field. Probably the most talented player that I ever coached was Roddy White at UAB that played with the Falcons all those years. Roddy was a state wrestling champion in high school. A little different, tough as nails, and was a really good player. Probably the game that I remember the most would have been when we went to my first game at Cincinnati. We knocked off Penn State, who had just won the national championship the year before. And we had no business winning that game. Penn State helped us, but our kids found a way to do it. So, but Whit Taylor is probably talent, just pure what you got, making something of it. I put Whit Taylor up there with anybody.
David?
My favorite game memory, without question, the 1986 Sugar Bowl. Tennessee 35, Miami, who thought they were going to kick our rear end 7. It was a thing of beauty. That whole stadium was just, I heard Rocky Top for the next 2 weeks through my mind. Amazing. Best player that I ever coached against, you're not going to, maybe you know, but it's Aaron Donald, who currently plays for the Rams. He was at Pitt. And I'm looking at that week, I'm looking at our offensive line, and I'm looking at film of Aaron Donald, wondering if we could play 7-on-7. Good gosh, disruptive defensive lineman is what has made the Southeastern Conference, in my opinion, what it is. And I could name many of those folks.
Many.
Greatest player, I've been too blessed to even try to go there. You know, I know that all fortunate coaches coach great players, and I'm a fortunate coach, so I wouldn't pick any one.
And let me finish by telling this story. Our best player I played against was Reggie White. Reggie White. And I remember we're playing Tennessee in Nashville, and Whit Taylor, he checked every single running play away from Reggie White. Whatever was called, he went to the line and said, no, we're going over here. That's how smart Whit was. But Reggie White was an unbelievable college football player. Unbelievable.
Okay, before we end this, we're going to take a vote. Billy wants to ask a question. How many of you all say Billy should be allowed to? That wasn't what I was looking for.
All right, this is for all of you guys. The quarterback position has changed so much. Tony, how has it changed for a guy that has covered college football? And Watson and David, as coaches, how has the quarterback position changed?
Coach Fulmer doesn't get a chance at that one? Okay, Tony, you started.
Well, I have to this because you're talking about a couple of the best coaches that's ever coached the game and coached quarterbacks. But I will say this, the thing that, from my perspective, that has changed the most is I remember if you completed 51, 52% of your passes a generation ago, that was okay. Now, if you're not in the mid to high 60s, you're not even getting close. But it's the sophistication of the passing game that has changed. And these guys, you coach, y'all know more about this than I do, but all these 7-on-7 camps where these guys hone their skills in the summertime, it's changed the position dramatically. And here's the other point that I would make, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. There was a time in this conference when if you could get by with a good quarterback. But now you cannot get by with a good quarterback. If you're going to win a championship, you must have an elite quarterback. That's the biggest change that I've seen.
You want me to go, Dave? Then you can follow. I don't think coaching them has changed a lot. Fundamentals that David and I taught them years ago, we still teach a lot of the same things today. What's changed is that they have to make a lot more decisions than they used to. When I first started, you're throwing it 15 times a game, and then all of a sudden now you're throwing it 50 times a game. The other thing that's changed, David, is the high school kid comes in a lot more schooled than they were when we first started. They're all running these spread offenses, and so it's not as hard to get them to where they're going. But still, the good ones, it's not coaching them. The good ones have got it. There's an it factor to a quarterback that I believe that they've just got it, and they know when to turn it on. They know how they can get the kids to follow them. And I just think that'll never change. Those guys that have got it, and you just got to try to get them as far along as you can possibly take them. But I really don't think it's changed a lot in the way we coach them. We help them a lot more, David, because we throw a lot more ball control passes than we used to. When you threw 15 balls in the old days, you fake it to Herschel and you throw it deep. And so your percentages would go down. But now all these bubbles and all the things that we're doing with the quarterbacks today, the percentage really needs to be high 60s to be a really good player.
That's the only shot you got. I'm going to just do it quickly because I could talk about this for 5 hours. The one of the biggest change in coaching for me was going from under the center to the gun. And under the center, your eyes, you're taking a snap that you're never dealing with your eyes. And you play the game first with your eyes. So that first step, you're busy viewing the field. When I've started coaching shotgun kids, and this is one thing I looked at in recruiting, I don't know, but you can't have a guy that has to drop his head to catch a snap. It's no different than a middle infielder, a shortstop coming across the back. He's not looking. He's not playing for the Braves. I know we got to go.
No, just get close on the mic.
But, okay. But, well, I'm playing football, George. Damn it. You have to be able to catch it and still see the field and play the game. You train a quarterback from the neck up and the neck down. And as he catches that snap, that brain better be working and not looking at the ball. I'm telling you, it's why a lot of guys don't transition from high school to college or college to the NFL, because as the game gets faster, your brain and your eyes have to work faster for whatever that's worth.
Coach Fulmer, you want to close us out?
No, yes, I will. You guys, I hope you have a great appreciation for the amount of integrity and the amount of talent on that stage with all three of those guys. And George, thanks for doing a great job putting this together. It's fantastic. When David Cutcliffe and Watson Brown are coaching you, you know you've been coached. Kids we're fortunate to have them as the coach, and we were fortunate to be able to spend a little time with you tonight, George, and all the folks there. So good idea and great job making it work.
Coach Fulmer, thank you for taking the time. I know it's a little goofy in Zoom, but it turned out great. Thank you for doing this.
You bet.
And let me say to these three, I haven't hit as many homers as Ronald Acuna, but I hit a home run getting this whole panel, and I knew it. So here's the last thing I want them to do. If you all will stick around for a few minutes, because I think a lot of people in this audience would like to meet all of you. David, go Braves. Thank you for doing this.
I'll see you in October. I'll see you in October. You can hear my coaching voice, George. Don't worry.
Watson, thank you as always.
It was an honor, George.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Tony, last call about the book. Let's hear it.
The 19th, it'll be out in October, and I hope you'll get it. It was an absolute joy to visit with my teammates. Some guys I had not spoken to in 50 years, and some of the guys on that team 52 years after we played. As Coach Brown said, they become your best friends, and these guys are my best friends.
Go ahead and say it, David.
Just told George that book is why we should play football. We're talking about what's really, really important about playing football. So great job, Tony.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks to the folks at Wilson Bank and Trust. We'll put one of these on again right around September 1st, give or take. I'll get the word out, and I hope you'll come back. Thanks for being here tonight. Be nice to your waiters and waitresses, because they have worked their fannies off. Good night, everybody.